What's up, guys? We are back with a full slate of college basketball action here on Saturday, March 1st. We're going to break down a bunch of the biggest college basketball games on the slate. We're going to look at bets on the side and over-under, and make sure to check that pinned comment throughout the day to see if there are any changes as injury news and player availability is confirmed. Thursday, guys, we ended up going 2-2 in our free video picks. Got off to a good start there with the Cavaliers plus 2.5. That one ended up coming through pretty comfortably. A very exciting game to watch. Massive comeback there from the Cavaliers. Kind of embarrassing for Tatum and Jaylen Brown to be, telling everybody to get out of here like they've won this game in the first quarter. Well, guys, you ended up losing that game, so that's not a great look. Also, a bad look was the Memphis Grizzlies eventually not being able to win there against the Knicks. That's not a very good look. Memphis kind of going in our do not bet pile, at least if they play any team that's going to be even in the playoffs. We also had the New Orleans Pelicans as a theoretical play, so hopefully you guys dodged that one. I did put it in the pinned comment as injury news needed, and once we found out that Zion and CJ McCollum were sitting out, we were getting off of that one as much as we possibly could. So that one goes in there as sort of a loss, but I hope if you guys were staying on top of it, you avoided that play. We finished things out with a solid win on Akron, minus 4.5 there on the college side. So we'll definitely take that one. That was a nice win. So 2-2 in the free plays, but guys, over at stumpthespread.com, the premium college basketball plays went 3-0. We had Purdue minus 5.5. They end up coming through and getting back on track there with that 10-point win at home over UCLA. We also had Akron minus 4, getting the slightly better price there for the premium members. Waited around a little bit. That line moved in the direction we wanted. Still took Akron. That was a nice win there. And we had Cornell minus 8.5. They came through for us also. So a nice 3-0 day over there for the premium members. Do me a big favor, guys. Hit that thumbs up button on this video. It's good luck, at least in theory, and maybe more importantly, guys, if we can get to 1,000 likes on this video, we're going to be giving away a free hoodie. Also, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on our daily content. That will also get us closer to giving away a free hoodie. We're giving one away at 50,000 subscribers. We're around 48,500, so closing in there very closely. Also, guys, big shout out for a donation yesterday, guys. Red Dog donating $15 2 times, so thanks, man. I really appreciate it. We'll put that right into the old diaper fund for little baby Stump because, man, he can go through them pretty quick. Guys, if you're interested in becoming a channel member, you can click on the little join button right below the video. Members get exclusive early access to all of my videos, and potentially more importantly, guys, they get access to our members only giveaways that we're going to be running every single month. It's March. We're going to wait about 1 week, maybe a week and a half before we do our next members giveaway. We'll be giving away at least one hoodie this month to the channel members. Who knows, depending on how many get, maybe we'll be giving away more. Guys, all of our videos are sponsored by stumpthespread.com. We have a team of experienced cappers over there for every major sport, currently covering NBA, college basketball, UFC, NHL, and Major League Baseball is right around the corner. Like I said, we just went 3-0 yesterday on our premium picks over there on stumpthespread.com on the college basketball. If you want to go over there, guys, there's a link in the description. Click on that, get over there. You can check out our premium picks, but you can also get on our free email list. That'll get you a free pick pretty much every day straight to your inbox, and we'll also give you updates on our results. Definitely check your spam folder, though, on those emails. Every once in a while, we see people ending up with, not getting the emails. They're just in the spam folder. Just add us as a trusted email address, and that will take care of itself. Comment below with any bets you're looking at today. We'll give you our best advice on all of them. We're committed to responding to every single comment every day, so let us know anything you want to say about my picks, these videos, or anything you see here. As always, our favorite picks will be in the pinned comment down below. Now let's get into our first game of the day, guys. It's an early game at 11 a.m. tip. We've got number 13 Clemson going on the road to take on Virginia out there in the ACC. And Clemson comes into this game only one game back there of Duke in the ACC. A pretty crazy race there down the stretch. I mean, Clemson, they took down Duke earlier this season. They've got 3 games left. None of them are particularly tough. They're at Virginia, at Boston College, and then home against Virginia Tech. So they've had a good chance to sweep those 3 games to end things off here. Chase Hunter playing really, really well. We like what we're seeing from this team offensively for sure. Easily top 100, but their defense is excellent, guys. Giving up 66.5 points per game. You don't see that every day. They're fresh off a blowout win against Notre Dame, a 10-point win before that at SMU. That's a very solid win. A blowout road win at Florida State before that. So they've been playing well at home or on the road. It doesn't really seem to matter. So definitely a team to keep a close eye on. One of the best teams out there in the ACC. A conference that's not having a ton of success. I mean, we like Duke, we like Clemson, we like Louisville a little bit, but the ACC maybe not the toughest conference here as we get closer to NCAA tournament time. The Virginia Cavaliers come into this game 500 on the season. They're 14-14. They did just take down Wake Forest at Wake Forest their last time out, but their 2 games before that very, very ugly, guys. Getting blown out by Duke and blown out there at North Carolina. So they've got a chance, put a big win on the resume here against Clemson, but It's going to be a little bit tough. This team, very, very weak offensively, nearly 400th in the nation in total offense. That slow pace of play just results in all these numbers looking terrible. And really, guys, they kind of deserve to look terrible. They're not the dominant defensive force we've seen in the past. Like, they've had some pretty sketchy games. I mean, their last game, they gave up 75 points to Wake Forest. Both games before that, they gave up over 80. So, not loving what we're seeing for Virginia right here. They're getting 6.5 points at home. We've got a total of 132.5. Clemson, 7-3 against spread on the road, 15-13 to the over. UVA 7-8 against spread at home, 18-10 to the over. So if you want to take over 132.5, be my guest. That seems pretty reasonable in this game, but I think taking Clemson here minus 6.5 is a very reasonable play. It is a little bit chalky. Don't get me wrong. I think a lot of money is going to come in on Clemson at that number, but I think they probably win this game by double digits. Like, no big look ahead spot or anything like that, and I don't think they're going to take their foot off the gas here at the end of the regular season. Next on the docket, guys, we're headed to the Big Ten. We are looking at number 16 Maryland going on the road to take on Penn State. The Terrapins come into this game 21-7 on the year. They're fresh off a tough loss, though, a 3-point loss against Michigan State. Obviously, guys, that is not a bad loss at all. Like, that's against one of the toughest teams out there. They've been playing well recently. They had won 4 in a row before that, taking advantage of some mediocre to decent opponents, but nothing super, super impressive. But a very, very tough loss in a tough game against a tough opponent there. So I'm not going to really hold that against them. Losing to the top team in the conference, not a big deal. Maryland is 11-6 in conference play, so that's looking good. Queen, a very solid leading scorer, 15, 16 points per game. Nothing wrong with that. This is a top 20 offensive team. They're around a top 100 rebounding team, and their defense is also very, very good. So they do find themselves in something of a bounce back spot here after that loss. But like I said, definitely not a bad loss. And we'll see what they do here on the road against the Penn State Nittany Lions, who are 15-14 on the season. They are almost dead last. Not quite. They're still above Washington there out in the Big Ten, but not having a particularly nice conference schedule time. But they are playing a little bit better here at the end of the year. They kept it within 5 at Indiana the last time out. They did win at Minnesota, and they managed to knock off Nebraska in a crazy 89-72 win. So they're definitely playing better. They're going to be really, really tested here at the end of the year, though, going up against Maryland and then against Wisconsin. So we'll see if Ace Baldwin Jr. can hold things together for them. I mean, he's a monster. 14 points, 7 assists per game. Like, that's dominant stuff. This is a very good offensive team, but they play very little defense, and that rebounding is a huge concern. I mean, they're 329th in the NCAA in rebounding, in total rebounding, so I know that's not a great stat, but it gives you something of a picture of this team, not really competing that well on the glass. So we'll see what they do in this one. They're getting 5.5 points here at home. We got a total of 154.5. Maryland only 3-5 against spread on the road. They are 18-10 to the over. Penn State 7-9 against spread at home, 17-11-1 to the under. This is a little bit of a tough spot, guys. I'm going to be siding slightly towards Penn State. This is not a big lean necessarily, but I do think there's some reason to look at the Nittany Lions here. It's a good spot to find an underdog, and taking a home underdog in conference play, never the worst idea. Headed to the Big East for this one, guys, we are looking at the Yukon Huskies going on the road to take on Providence. Yukon 19-9 on the season, so not exactly having the year they imagined. They are fresh off a comfortable win there against Georgetown, so that's nice. They bounce back a bit after getting manhandled there at St. John. So that can feel great. Now they got to take on Providence, a team they did beat, but only by 3 points early in the year, and they're going to be on the road for this one. So definitely not any sort of walkover game here for the Huskies. Solo ball putting up decent numbers, but we haven't been in love with what we've seen from Yukon this season. I mean, they're a middle-of-the-road rebounding team. Their offensive numbers are fine. Their defensive numbers are fine, but this just isn't one of the dominant Yukon teams from the past. They've got some good wins. I mean, they've taken down teams like Kraton, Villanova, Marquette, but it just has been pretty uneven. They've also lost at Seton Hall. They played a very close game against DePaul earlier this season. They lost at Xavier. This has not been any sort of walk in the park here for Yukon, and I don't think this is going to be a walk in the park either, as they go on the road to take on the Providence Friars, who are only 12-16 on the season. They're actually 6-11 there in conference play, so that's a little bit better. Down the stretch, it's been a bit rough. They just lost by 30 at Marquette their last time out, so that probably doesn't feel great. They lost at Georgetown their last time out, as the time before that, so that's not great. And the game before that, they did beat Villanova, so they're positives to look at for this team. I mean, definitely don't think it's been a disaster season, I wouldn't say, for them, but I would also think there's a few games mixed in that they would love to have back, and one of those would be their 87-84 loss at then number 11 Yukon. So we'll see if they can do anything better in this game. I mean, in that, obviously very close loss, they couldn't really get a ton going there from the 3-point line. Only 4 of 13, which I know is 30%, is not bad, but you gotta want to make more than 4 threes in a game. They also allowed Yukon to shoot 46% from 3 And we saw the Huskies shoot 32 free throws against Providence shooting only 23. We also saw the Friars dominate the boards in that game. Guys, looking at the numbers here, Providence getting 6.5 points at home. We've got a total of 145.5. Yukon 5-5 against spread on the road, 15-12-1 to the over. Providence 7-7 against spread at home, 15-12-1 to the over as well. So right off the bat, guys, I think over is very reasonable. We saw 171 total points scored in the first game between these two. I can get behind over. It's not necessarily a play that's going in the pinned comment, but a play that does have a chance to go in the pinned comment, guys. I like Providence here getting 6.5 points. I think they find a way to keep this game very, very close against a Yukon team that really hasn't filled me with tons of optimism. Also, Yukon has Marquette on deck. Like, this Providence play seems very, very good to me. It's even got a chance to end up over at stumpthespread.com. Next up, guys, we're looking at the number 1 Auburn Tigers going on the road to take on number 17 Kentucky. Auburn comes in this game 26-2 on the year, absolutely cruising there through the SEC. They're 14-1 in conference play. They're fresh off a 106-76 beatdown of Ole Miss, a game that a lot of people thought could be close. I could even have been talked into thinking it was going to be close, but yeah, did not end up close there at the end of that game, guys. Johnny Broome, a monster, one of the best players in college basketball. This is one of the best offensive teams, one of the better defensive teams as well. They're elite on the boards. They're a very good ball movement team, like plenty of assists getting put up there on a nightly basis. Like, there's just not a lot of negatives to find here for the Auburn Tigers. I mean, every game, they just go out there and they battle, and they are very often successful, guys. I mean, their last big test was at number 2 Alabama. They won that game by 9 at Alabama. So not anything bad really to say here about Auburn as they go on the road to take on the Kentucky Wildcats, who are 19-9 on the season. They come into this game only 8-7 there in SEC play, so very middle of the pack there in the SEC. They're fresh off a narrow 1-point win at Oklahoma, so I mean, they got the win, so congratulations on that. But guys, I don't know about that. I don't know how excited we're supposed to be. I mean, Oklahoma's playing a little bit better. We did see them play at Alabama recently. They ended up losing that game 96-83. So that's a big test, and they didn't really pass that test. They have won 2 games against Tennessee this year. Kind of just seems like that's a bad matchup there for the Volunteers. But right now, guys, despite Kentucky being 4th in the nation and scoring 40th and rebounding, like some good numbers, the defense, though, really, really concerns me, especially going up against a team like Auburn. Kentucky, they're getting 4.5 points at home. Obviously, you know, they've got a nice home court advantage there. We've got a total of 165.5. Auburn 4-4 against the spread on the road, 17-11 to the over. Kentucky 9-7 against the spread at home, 15-13 to the over. Guys, I'm going a little bit chalky here as well. I don't love doing that, but there's no way I think that Auburn should only be 4.5 point favorites, despite the fact they're on the road in this game. Definitely give me Auburn here. I think they could win this game by 10, 15 points. Kentucky doesn't play any defense. Auburn does play defense, unless Auburn gets aggressively homered in this game. Like, if we see Kentucky shoot 35 free throws and Auburn shoots 12, maybe this game goes to Kentucky. But other than that, I think Auburn wins this one comfortably. Hey guys, jumping in here with a quick ad break. This is a great time to sign up for stumpthespread.com. Signing up for a premium membership gets you access to our top confidence plays on all the major sports. We're currently covering NCAA basketball, the NBA, NHL, UFC, and the NFL. We have a team of professional cappers that work extremely hard putting in the research on these games every day so you don't have to. We make things very easy for you with pick notifications directly to your phone and unit sizes assigned to each play so you can see where our confidence level is on every individual matchup. To test out the service before you buy, join our free email list, get the occasional free or premium pick straight to your inbox. Just click the link in the description to sign up for a free account. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you're new. Now guys, back to the games. Next up, guys, we're looking at number 10, Texas Tech, going on the road to take on Kansas out there in the Big 12. The Red Raiders, guys, they are 21-7 on the year. They're 12-5 in conference play, so obviously not going to be catching Houston that's 16-1 in conference play, but they've had a good year. No doubt about that. They are fresh off of a kind of brutal 69-61 loss there against Houston. They did what they could. They kept things pretty competitive, but Houston just too good there in the end. JT Toppin having a great season, 17 points per game, 55% shooting. Like, that's hard to top. Elijah Hawkins, very good assist numbers, 6.5 assists, 2 turnovers per game. That will definitely work. This is an elite offensive team that plays great defense, guys. They're averaging 80 points per game. They're giving up 66 per game. Like, this is a very, very good team. They've had a couple hiccups here. I mean, they played not their best game there at TCU, eventually losing by 3. They did lose at Arizona, so now they got to go on the road again. Maybe not their favorite thing to do, but it's definitely a bounce back spot after that, tough, very physical game against number 4 Houston. And they're taking on the Kansas Jayhawks, a team that's fallen well below expectations this season, guys. They're 19-9 on the year. They're unranked. They're fresh off a 71-64 win at Colorado, a win they desperately needed and didn't even really see seem that locked in for, which I guess in their defense, they got a win. But man, I don't know. I just am not loving the body language. I'm not loving what I'm seeing from this team across the board. Maybe they're just waiting for, NCAA tournament time to turn it on or something like that. This is not the NBA, guys. That's not how it works. You can't just wait for tournament time and think you're going to flip a switch. That is not going to be okay. Maybe you can get out of the first round with that attitude, but you're not going very far at all. This team struggles a bit offensively. I don't think there's any big secret there. The last tough game they played was at BYU, and they got annihilated, 91-57. They get to play this game at home. That's a big deal for this team, but they've got a tough last 3 games. Texas Tech, at Houston, and then Arizona. So it's going to be a bit brutal here down the stretch. I don't know that Hunter Dickinson can really carry this team at this point. It's not looking like it to me. We see Kansas, they're 4.5-point favorites at home. That is shocking to me. We've got a total here of 145.5. Texas Tech, 5-3 against spread on the road, 14-13-1 to the over. Kansas, they're 7-8 against spread at home, 20-8 to the under. So they're a massive under team. I'm not messing with the total in this game though, guys. I'm taking Texas Tech here. They're getting 4.5 points. They're getting 2 possessions in this game. Like, this feels fake. It feels like a made-up thing. Like, I just can't believe that Kansas is favored here. I know it's a crazy environment, guys. Don't get me wrong. I know. I've watched plenty of Kansas home games over the course of my life. I see what it's like there, but I just don't think that's going to matter here for a Texas Tech team that is just drastically more talented. Next up, guys, we're taking a look at the A10. We've got Richmond going on the road to take on the Dayton Flyers. Richmond only 10-19 on the season. They're one of the lower-rated teams in the A10 as a whole. They've lost their last 2 in a row. Their last time out, it was a home game for Richmond, but they still managed to lose by 18 against VCU. So it hasn't been easy sailing by any stretch of the imagination for the Spiders this season. Don't have any monster leading scorers. They're averaging less than 70 points per game. Their rebounding numbers are some of the worst in college basketball. I mean, 404th in the nation in total rebounding. Like, that's not good, guys. And the defense, not much better. So not a lot of positive things to say about Richmond here as they go on the road to take on Dayton, a team that has underachieved this season for sure. I mean, they're currently in 4th out there in the A10, not where they expected to be. They would have certainly hoped to have been one of the top 1 or 2 teams in the conference, but that just has not been the reality. The defense for Dayton has not been as good this season. Neither has the rebounding. The offense maybe has taken a slight uptick, but I don't even know if I can really say that. I mean, the last time out, they did win at Rhode Island, 85-77, so congratulations on beating Rhode Island, a middle-of-the-road team in your conference. I don't know if I can really get too excited. I mean, the game before that, they were at Loyola Chicago. They straight up lost. They're going to have a big test here at the end of the regular season going on the road to VCU, so we'll see how that eventually goes, but they've got some business to take care of here against Richmond and then against St. Louis. So, yeah, I don't know, guys. Nate Santos leading the way for this squad, 14.1 points per game. Cool, but is this enough for Dayton to cover 14.5 points here at home? We've got a total of 137.5. Richmond only 3-9 against spread on the road. They're 14-14 to the over/under. Dayton 6-9 against spread at home. They're 19-8 to the over. I'm not too interested in the side in this one, guys. I would maybe even lean a bit towards Richmond and the points, but I think you want to take the over in this game. We've seen Dayton be a significant, a big, not even significant, guys, a big over team this season. Their defense just isn't there. Richmond, obviously not a monster offensive team, no doubt about that, but they're not going to be able to slow the ball down like they're going to want to do. Dayton's not going to really let them do that, so go ahead and give me the over in this one of that very small number. Next on the docket, guys, we're headed back to the Big Ten. We're looking at the Minnesota Golden Gophers going on the road to take on Nebraska. Minnesota, they've been a weird team. They had a nice little run. They went out to LA and took down USC and UCLA. Then they come back home and they lose to Penn State and lose to Northwestern. So fresh off back-to-back losses here, guys. I mean, this is a team that can score the ball a little bit, at least when it's in Dawson Garcia's hands, but other than that, there aren't a ton of positives for this team. Their rebounding numbers aren't great. Their defensive numbers aren't great. And yeah, unless Dawson Garcia really goes off, this team has a very tough time producing offense. So we'll see if he can go off here against Nebraska. The Cornhuskers, 17-11 on the year, not having as good of a season as last season by far. They're 7-10 in conference play. They're fresh off back-to-back losses. They went at Penn State and lost, not a great look. And then they let one get away, guys. They lost 49-46 against Michigan. That was a chance for them to score a big upset. Would have made them, got them a lot closer to making the NCAA tournament, but unable to come away with the win there. So, yeah, going to be a tough look. They need big stuff from Bryce Williams. That's no major surprise for this team. They've got decent offensive numbers, I suppose. Not way above average, though. And the rebounding, a bit of a concern. The defense, also a bit of a concern here, guys. And looking at the numbers, Nebraska, 7.5-point favorites. We've got a total of 134.5. Minnesota, 5-3 against spread on the road, so a pretty decent road team. They're a slight under team. Nebraska, 6-8 against spread at home. They're 14-14 to the over/under. First up in this spot, guys, I think we're going to shade just slightly towards Minnesota and the points. I'm not 100% sure on that one, but what I am 100% sure of is I like the over in this spot. It's another very small number. I know we could see these two teams end up in something of a rock fight, but that feels a bit unlikely to me. I know that, the last game that we saw Nebraska play ended up crazy low scoring. I don't think we're going to see that again. The game before that, guys, was crazy high scoring. I think we see something much closer in this one. Go ahead and give me the over here in back-to-back games. Rolling right along here, guys, we're looking at Oklahoma going on the road to take on Ole Miss. The Oklahoma Sooners, 17-11 on the year. They did have that nice win against Mississippi State, but followed it up with a devastating 1-point loss there to Kentucky. That would have been a huge win for this program, but unfortunately not quite able to make it happen. So, yeah, they've done some good stuff down the stretch, played some kind of close games. They get blown out by Florida, so that's maybe not, ideal. Losing to LSU, that's a straight up bad look. So, they've got some chances here. I mean, they've got Ole Miss, Missouri, and Texas, so they could bolster their resume a little bit. They're going to need great play from Jalen Moore. 17 points per game, very good stuff there. This is a decent offensive team, but their rebounding numbers and their defensive numbers really concern me, especially in this spot. So we'll see if they can kind of hold it together here on the road. That hasn't been their specialty this season, though, I'll tell you guys that. And they're not taking on an easy team. They're taking on the Ole Miss Rebels, who are 19-9 on the season. They have dropped 3 in a row, but when you're losing to Mississippi State, at Vanderbilt, a very tough place to play, and then their last time out getting blown out by Auburn, yeah, you're going to have that, guys. This Ole Miss team gets to play Oklahoma, Tennessee, and Florida. So if they can score, an upset in one of those Tennessee or Florida games, that would be a big deal. But before they do that, they need to take care of business here against Oklahoma. So we'll see what happens. This is a good offensive team, but once again, guys, we're very bothered by the defense and the rebounding of this Ole Miss squad. Sean Padula putting up some decent numbers, but I'm just not that excited with what I've seen from this team on the glass. It has not been super pretty, and it has not been super pretty to see what they do on defense either. So, looking at the numbers for this game, guys, we see Ole Miss 7.5-point favorites at home. We've got a total of 152.5. Oklahoma only 2-5 against the spread on the road. They're 16-12 to the over. Ole Miss, guys, 5-8-1 against spread at home. They're 15-13 to the under. I think I'm going to be leaning here towards Oklahoma getting 7.5 points. They're going to keep this game relatively close. It's obviously a very important game for both teams. So I think we see this one end up being like a 1, maybe a 2-possession game down the stretch. And if that's going to be happening and I can get 7.5 points, that's definitely what I'm going to want to take. Next up, we've got one of the biggest games on the entire slate. We've got number 6 Alabama going on the road to take on number 5 Tennessee. The Crimson Tide 23-5 on the season, obviously cruising. They did lose 2 in a row there. They lost to Auburn and to Missouri. Playing at Missouri, that's a tough one. Although I'll admit it, guys, I was fading Missouri in that game. So they came back strong, a nice 13-point win there against Kentucky, and then a blowout demolition 111-73 win there their last time out against Mississippi State. So that's a huge game. Definitely a spot for them to get back on track. This has been the best offensive team in the nation basically all season long. They're still first, averaging 91.5 points per game. Crazy stuff there. Mark Sears putting up bonkers numbers. This team loves to get out and run. That's what they want to do. That's what they're gonna do, pretty much regardless of situation, pretty much regardless of opponent. They have a crazy end of the season right here, guys. They play at Tennessee, then a home game against number 3 Florida, and then they finish off the regular season, guys, at number 1 Auburn. So that's bonkers. This team puts up great stats, and they've had some huge wins this season. Are they ready for a big test here on the road against Tennessee, though? We'll have to wait and see, guys. I'm very excited to watch this game. The Volunteers, 5th in the nation, 23-5 on the year. They're 10-5 in conference play, so well behind Auburn and a little bit, I'm not to say maybe well behind, but behind Alabama in the conference standings for sure. They come into this game playing well, winning 3 in a row. Their last win, a kind of close win there at LSU, makes me feel like this was a bit of a look ahead spot there for the Volunteers, but overall, we don't hate what we've seen from them recently. They've won 6 of the last 7 with wins against Florida and Missouri mixed in there. So this is a team that is very dangerous. Chaz Lanier, a monster, 18 points per game. Ziegler, 14 points and 7 assists per game. 3 turnovers isn't great, but still very good stuff. This team plays lockdown defense. They can light up the scoreboard when they need to or when they're given the opportunity. The question for me is, are they going to be able to run with Alabama, or are they going to be able to inflict their pace of play on Alabama? It's going to be interesting, guys. Definitely a battle of 2 different styles here. Tennessee, they're 3.5-point favorites at home. We got a total of 158.5. Alabama, 6-4 against spread on the road, 15-12-1 to the over. Tennessee, 9-6 against spread at home. They are 17-11 to the under. So definitely, like I said, a kind of a battle of 2 different styles. I could see this one going either way. I'm going to go ahead and stick with the hot team, which in my mind right now is actually Tennessee, winning 6 out of their last 7. I know Alabama's coming off that crazy game where they put up 111 points. Well, that is not going to happen here at Tennessee. I also think the refs could be on our side a little bit. Tennessee could get a little bit of that homer whistle. Heading into the mid-afternoon slate, guys, we are looking at the Big East. We've got Kraton going on the road to take on Xavier. The Blue Jays 20-8 on the season. They're currently 2 games back there of St. John's in the Big East standing. So they've done what they can. They've got 3 games left at Xavier, at Seton Hall, and against Butler. So they've got a good chance of finishing the season off strong. Their last couple games were a 10-point win over DePaul and a 11-point win against Georgetown. So they're taking care of business here. They did lose back-to-back games, though, losing at Yukon, or losing to Yukon, and losing at St. John's, but a 6-point loss at St. John's, really nothing to hang your head about at this point in the year. That St. John's team, pretty dominant. Kraton, a very good rebounding team. They play some nice defense. Obviously, Kalkenbrenner is a monster, 19 points per game, 66% from the field. Like, that's solid work, guys. That is solid work. So we'll see what kind of day here he can have against Xavier, a team that they beat by 9 earlier in the season. But Kraton was playing that one at home. That obviously makes a huge difference. The Musketeers, 10-7 in conference play, 18-10 on the year. They've won their last 4 in a row, but when your wins are against Providence, DePaul, Butler, and Seton Hall, I'm not going to throw you a parade. That Providence win is looking better and better, but those are wins against some of the bottom teams out there. They lost against Villanova. They did beat Yukon at one point. They played a close game against St. John's. I mean, they're doing some positive stuff. I'm not about to say they're bad or anything like that, but they've got Kraton, Butler, and Providence coming up here to end their regular season. So we'll see what they can do. This is a pretty good offensive team. The rebounding numbers, though, are definitely a concern, and they're definitely a concern in this particular matchup, guys. The last time we saw these two teams play, it was a road game there for Xavier, but on the boards, guys, Kraton only had a 4 rebound edge. We didn't see a big free throw discrepancy. We didn't see either team shoot, way, uncharacteristically well or uncharacteristically bad. So I think that game, that 9-point win there by Kraton, gives us a pretty close to accurate idea of, where these two teams are at, or at least where they were at a few weeks ago. Obviously, a lot of things change. Looking at the numbers, guys, Xavier, 2.5-point favorites at home. We've got a total of 149.5. Kraton, 8-1 against spread on the road this season. That's pretty crazy. We see them 16-12 to the under. Xavier, they are 9-6 against the spread at home, which is very, very good, obviously, as well. And they are 15-13 to the under. This is a rough spot, guys. I'm maybe going to shade here a little bit towards the under, but I also think there's plenty of reason here to take Kraton getting that free possession or possession and a half, depending on how you want to look at it. I think the Blue Jays are more than capable of making this a very close game. I think this is going to go down to the wire. Like, obviously, Xavier needs to be, kind of desperate in need of these wins, but I think the side I want to be on here is Kraton. Headed back to the ACC for this one, we're looking at Notre Dame going on the road to take on Wake Forest. The Fighting Irish, only 12-16 on the year. They're 6-11 in conference play. They're fresh off a kind of, I'm not going to say fully embarrassing, but a loss there at Clemson, number 13 Clemson, a letdown after a nice 76-22 win over Pittsburgh. So yeah, this team, I don't know, they're not having the best time, obviously, down the stretch. I mean, they even lost at Miami. That's pretty embarrassing. We don't love what we're seeing. I mean, Marcus Burton obviously is a monster, 21 points per game. You're not seeing a ton of dudes do that, but other than that, this team can't really rebound. Their defensive numbers are very, very mediocre. I don't know. It's just a little bit hard to have faith in this team when it seems like their head coach doesn't even have that much faith in them. He's having like a meltdown here every so often. So not loving what we're seeing coming out of Notre Dame as they go on the road here to take on the Wake Forest Demon Deacons, who are, in the top half there of the ACC. They're 11-6 in conference play. They have lost 2 in a row, though, guys. They lost at NC State, and then they lost against Virginia. So definitely a team that's going to need to finish the regular season strong. They've got this game against Notre Dame. Then they're taking on number 2 Duke at Duke. So that's a massive game there for Wake Forest. They kind of have a history of making things tough on Duke, but what are they going to do here in something of a letdown spot? That remains to be seen. We love what we've seen from Hunter Salas this season. I mean, 19 points per game, shooting almost 50% from the field. That's very, very good work, but this team struggles on the boards. Their defensive numbers, pretty respectable, though, so got to give them that, but they're not really an elite offense. And looking at the numbers for this game, guys, it's a little bit weird. I mean, Wake Forest, 7.5-point favorites. We've got a total of 141.5. Notre Dame, only 4-7 against spread on the road. They're 14-13-1 to the over. Wake Forest, 4-9-1 against spread at home. Not a great team against spread at home. They are 17-11 to the under. This does not feel ideal, guys, but since it's a big look-ahead spot here for Wake Forest, I feel like they probably get the win here in the end, but I think Notre Dame finds a way to make this thing close, a 1, maybe 2 possession game. So give me Notre Dame and the points here as a very small lean. Heading into that evening slate here, guys, we're back in the SEC. We've got number 14 Missouri going on the road to take on Vanderbilt. The Tigers 21-7 on the year, having a very good time, 10-5 in conference play. They're fresh off of a blowout win there against South Carolina, which that's pretty much expected. South Carolina only 1-14 in conference play, but Mizzou kind of taking care of business here. They did lose at Arkansas, so that's not a great look. A kind of predictable a kind of predictable letdown spot coming off that huge win there against Alabama. I mean, against a Vanderbilt team, everybody can have trouble, but Mizzou did not the last time these two teams faced each other. It was a home game for Mizzou playing that one there in Columbia, but Vanderbilt, they took them down 75-66. So a nice win there for Mizzou. This is a team that scores a ton of points, kind of scoring by committee too. You never know who's going to be giving you buckets on any given night. They play some defense. I'm not going to say their defense is amazing. The rebounding also a little bit questionable, but this is a team that can really light up the scoreboard, and that can be a problem for pretty much anyone. Will that be a problem here for Vanderbilt? Well, the Commodores are also 19-9 on the year. They've won their last two in a row, taking down Ole Miss and Texas A&M. They went into Texas A&M last time out, guys, and got the 86-84 win. That is very impressive. We liked a lot what we've seen from Vanderbilt here down the stretch. Jason Edwards is a monster. We love what we're seeing from this team offensively. The defense, maybe not great. The rebounding, also a little bit sketchy. So we have reason to be a bit concerned. I mean, the last time these two teams faced each other, it was a while ago, but we saw Vanderbilt shoot 44, almost 45% from three, comparable numbers of free throws, but we also saw Mizzou shoot over 40% from three as well. They did a good job on the boards, maybe not a dominant job, and we end up, with a 9-point win there for Mizzou. So looking at the numbers here, Vanderbilt getting 2.5 points at home. We've got a total of 157.5. Mizzou 5-3 against spread on the road, 16-12 to the over. We see Vanderbilt 10-5 against the spread at home, so very respectable there. And they're a 500 over/under team. Mizzou has Oklahoma on deck. Vanderbilt has Arkansas on deck, so it's more of a look-ahead spot for Missouri than anything. But this game, guys, this is a tough spot. I don't hate over 157.5 at all. That might honestly be my bigger lean because this game kind of feels like a coin flip. I guess give me Vanderbilt at home, but this is a very, very tough spot. Next up, guys, back to the ACC. We've got the Pittsburgh Panthers going on the road to take on number 19 Louisville. Pittsburgh comes into this game fresh off of a tough loss there against Georgia Tech. The game before that, they lost at Notre Dame. This team's hopes are fading. They're plummeting down the standings there in the ACC. They're 7-10 in conference play. This team, very, very weak on the boards, very, very weak defensively. So not a ton of positive things for me to say. I mean, the last time they played Louisville, they did keep it close. They only lost by 4, but that was a home game for Pittsburgh, and now they got to go to Louisville. So that could be a little bit different, guys. I mean, the Louisville Cardinals come into this game 22-6 on the year. They're up there 15-2 in conference play, only one game back of Duke. They've won, their last 6 in a row. Yeah, very, very solid stuff. Not against the toughest competition. I mean, they beat Boston College, Miami, NC State, Notre Dame, Florida State, and then the last time out, they got a 71-66, very close win there at Virginia Tech. They've got Pitt, Cal, and Stanford on deck, so not really the toughest schedule to close things out. I mean, Chucky Hepburn, probably pretty stoked about, who he's got to have in front of him in the last few games. 15.6 points per game and 6 assists does not seem unachievable against those teams. This is a team that can really score the ball. The defense maybe not great, but 80 points per game, around 50th in the nation on offense. Very nice there. A top 80-90 rebounding team. Nothing wrong with that either. So, looking at the numbers. Louisville, 10.5 point favorites at home. We got a total of 150.5. Pitt, only 3-7 against spread on the road. So, pretty bad on the road. They're basically a 500 over/under team. Louisville, 5-9 against spread at home, 18-10 to the under, which a little bit surprising to see them be an under team here. And guys, looking back, I mean, we see that there was 160 total points scored in their first game. I just can't really justify taking Louisville here minus 10.5. I think Pitt's got enough fight in them to keep this game relatively close. So give me the Panthers here, but I do not trust them enough to put this in the pinned comment. Heading into the later part of the evening, guys, we got another massive SEC showdown. We've got number 12 Texas A&M going on the road to take on number 3 Florida. The Aggies 20-8 on the season, obviously having a pretty good time. I mean, they're 9-6 in conference play, so I'll give them some credit, but I'm not going to freak out too much. They have lost 3 in a row, losing at Mississippi State, losing against Tennessee, and then losing 86-84, a 2-point kind of tough loss there against Vanderbilt. So now they got Florida, Auburn, and LSU to end the season. Definitely not an easy easy 2 games. Obviously, the LSU one's a little different, but yeah, at Florida and against Auburn, yikes. This team around 200th in the nation in offense, but they're a very good rebounding team. They can also crash the boards, but are they really going to be stoked about putting Wade Taylor up here against a guy like Walter Clayton Jr.? That could be a little bit tough, guys. I mean, Florida, they come into this game 24-4 on the year. They've been absolutely cruising until their last time out, guys. They took a tough 88-83 loss there at Georgia. They tried to make the comeback in that game. It just wasn't quite happening. A rough game there for the Florida Gators. So they find themselves certainly in a bounce back spot here. I mean, trying to bounce back against a team like Texas A&M probably doesn't feel ideal, but we'll see if they're capable of it. This team has been dominant this year. I mean, Walter Clayton Jr., like we were saying, a monster. This team, very good offensively, very good on the boards, which I think could be the difference maker in this game. And also, Florida plays some great defense. And looking at the numbers here, Florida, they're 9.5-point favorites at home. We got a total of 147.5. Texas A&M, only 3-4-1 against spread on the road. They're 18-10 to the under. Florida, 10-4 against spread at home. They're 17-11 to the under. I'm not interested in under 147.5. I think that is a pretty bad play, to be honest. I'd lean towards the other side of that over-under, but I think this is a great spot to take Florida here at -9.5. I think it should be more like -13 or something like that. And yeah, Florida going to be on a mission here after a tough loss. The Gators, they have Texas A&M, Alabama, and Ole Miss coming up. So no time for them to take their foot off the gas, especially coming off of that tough loss at Georgia. Next up, guys, we got a massive Big 12 showdown. We've got number 22 Arizona going on the road to take on number 9 Iowa State. The Wildcats, 22nd in the nation despite being 19-9 on the year, but that's largely due to them being 13-4 there in conference play. They're the second place team in the Big 12, so that's got to feel pretty good, but the fact they've lost 3 out of their last 5 probably doesn't feel great, guys. They lost at Kansas State. They lost against Houston in a very close 4-point game. Then they beat Baylor at Baylor, a pretty competitive game, though. They took a tough 1-point loss against BYU, and then they blew out Utah their last time out. So that was a home game for them. Now they got to go on the road to Iowa State. They've got Iowa State, Arizona State, and Kansas to finish the year. So they've got to feel like they could make some noise here at the end of the season. Obviously, a win over a big name like Iowa State would be nice. Caleb Love, a monster for this team. They're an elite offensive team. The defense, maybe not that crazy, but the rebounding numbers are very, very good as well. So there's a lot to like here about Arizona, but they're going on the road here to play in a pretty tough environment. I mean, number 9 Iowa State, they've been in the top 10 basically all season long for a reason. They've been one of the top teams in the Big 12. They come to this one losers of 2 in a row, though. They lost your obligatory loss there against Houston. They went to Houston, kept things competitive, ended up losing that game by 9, but then they followed it up with a real stinker, guys. They lost at Oklahoma State 74-68. This is not a game that's even supposed to be competitive, really. Like, you would think Iowa State would just blow them out. Well, that was not the case. I mean, over the course of the year, Iowa State, 45th in the nation, averaging over 80 points per game. They're a very good defensive team. The rebounding numbers, they could use a little bit of work, but overall, guys, Iowa State has looked like monsters, but didn't the last couple games, and that's certainly leaving room for concern against Arizona. The last time they played, they lost 86-75 at Arizona. A tough showing there. It was an overtime game. They got demolished in overtime, obviously. We saw the Cyclones shoot only 29% from 3. The free throw numbers, not too different, and the rebounding numbers, very, very even. So looking at this game, guys, I have a really hard time not backing Arizona. I mean, Iowa State, 6.5-point favorites. We've got a total of 151.5. Arizona, 6-3 against spread on the road. They're 15-13 to the over. Iowa State, 8-7 against spread at home, 16-12 to the under. Guys, this is a huge bounce back spot for Iowa State, so this might not end up in the pinned comment, but I think this is a very good spot to take Arizona, getting those 6.5 points. I think it's going to be another very, very close game from 2 very evenly matched teams, and I'm not sure who's going to come out on top in the end, but I definitely want to have the points in that kind of scenario. Last but not least here, guys, we are looking at West Virginia going on the road to take on BYU. The Mountaineers, 17-11 on the year. They're a middle-of-the-road team there in the Big 12. I would say they've slightly overachieved. They have won 2 out of their last 3, taking down Cincinnati by 3, getting blown out there at Texas Tech, and then getting a nice 73-55 win against TCU. They've got at BYU, at Utah, and then UCF to finish the season, so they have to imagine they could comfortably come out with 10 wins in conference play, which isn't terrible. Javon Small is a monster, 19 points, 6 assists per game. Like, that's all very, very reasonable, but this team is not very good offensively. They don't play with a ton of pace, obviously, but you still don't want to be 337th in the nation in points per game. The rebounding numbers also reflect that pace, and maybe not being the strongest rebounding team. And guys, their defense, I wouldn't call it, it's good. It's good. But some of that is also a function of their pace of play, and it's not as good as we've seen from this team in seasons past. They're going to go on the road here to take on the BYU Cougars, who are 20-8 on the season. They just crept into the top 25. They're 11-6 in conference play. They've won their last 5 in a row, including a win at West Virginia that started this whole thing. Again, they won 73-69, but they've taken down Arizona State, Arizona, Kansas, and Kansas State in addition. So we're liking a lot of what we see from BYU right now. An elite offensive team, 81.2 points per game. Definitely a contrast of styles here, no doubt about that. They're not great on the boards, but they're good, and they're not great defensively, but I would say they're very, very reasonable. The last time these two teams faced each other, I mean, it was a 4-point win there for BYU. That was at West Virginia, a historically tough place to play, but BYU managed to shoot 35% from 3 on the road. We saw the Cougars actually get the benefit of the whistle more than we saw West Virginia, so that's something to keep in mind, but we also saw BYU dominate the boards by 10 in this game, and yeah, I don't know, it looked pretty dominant there for BYU, despite the game ending up being pretty close. And looking at the numbers here, I'm not surprised to see BYU 9.5-point favorites here at home. We've got a total of 139.5. West Virginia 5-4 against spread on the road, 19-8-1 to the under. BYU 10-5 against spread at home, 16-12 to the over. Guys, give me BYU in this one at -9.5. I just don't think West Virginia is going to travel that well, although they have traveled a little bit better this season. I got to give them credit there, but BYU has been so good at home. They should have won their first matchup of the season against West Virginia by more. I think that's what we see happen in this one. Definitely give me the Cougars here. That's all the games we have for today, guys. Hit that like button for good luck on all of your bets. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Get over to stumpthespread.com to see all of our premium content here on a huge college basketball Saturday. We went 3-0 yesterday in college basketball picks at Stump the Spread. Hopefully we can have another big day. I don't think we're going to go perfect. We'll probably have somewhere between 8 and 10 premium picks over at Stump the Spread for the college basketball slate, and that doesn't include all the other sports that we cover. So definitely get over there. Check that out. Thanks for watching. Click the link in the description to get to stumpthespread.com, and we will see you guys tomorrow for more sports betting action.